This chateau was abandoned for over a decade. It had had squatters, the basement was flooded, the boilers destroyed, radiators burst. There had been long-running water leaks, roof leaks, and was infested with woodworm and rodents. We bought it anyway. It's now 2 years later and time has slipped by like a slippery thing covered in grease. In that time, we've sweated tears and blood and spilled milk and cried about it. We've also discovered that beneath every quick and easy job, there's a much harder job waiting to raise its ugly head while waving its fingers about like a 5-year-old who's just discovered the V sign. We are 2 years and a bit into the biggest adventure of our lives, and somehow we still have cheery smiles on our faces. This is my wife Jane, and this is my best friend Bunty. We had been living together in Suffolk for several years before making the move. Along for the ride was Lord Percy, Mrs. Miggins, who tragically died in a vehicle accident less than a week after we arrived, Bonnie, our old spaniel who lived out her last year happily here at the chateau, and our 2 horses, Penny, the 27-year-old thoroughbred, and Harry, the Connemara. And finally, this is me, Rory. The last 24 months or so have been a huge amount of fun, but things have been anything but plain sailing, to use a rather tired nautical metaphor.
We just fell in the river.
We've suffered floods, fallen trees and faulty wiring. We've battled armies of woodworm, squadrons of bats, rodent saboteurs and teenage totally average turtles. We've torn down ceilings, repaired a roof, joined a TV show, ripped up and replaced floorboards and joists, built a swimming pool, and we threw a huge party because we held our wedding here at the chateau. This story starts at the very beginning because, as Julie Andrews once sang, seems like as good a place as any. So let's wind back the clock all the way to the start. Oops, too far. Picture it. It was the year 2025. Actually, we'll just show you.
In 2024, we got the keys to Chateau de Pican, a 19th century chateau in the Gers in southwest France. Included in the purchase was a huge barn and orangerie, a gardener's cottage, a lake, and 2.5 hectares of rather overgrown parkland. The chateau came complete with all of the previous owners' belongings after their death, and what a treasure trove it is turning out to be, from the downright weird to artwork by recognised artists and every kind of curiosity in between.
The building had remained abandoned for a decade until a plucky couple moved in and made it their own. And no, I don't mean us. I mean the squatters who broke in 2023. After a short time, which included damage to various parts of the chateau, animal cruelty, theft, generally stinking up the place, and for some reason a sheep's carcass, they were evicted, arrested and prosecuted. 6 to 8 months later, another plucky couple got the keys and moved in, only to discover the unflushed surprises the squatters had squattingly left behind in the toilets.
It was a huge gamble. We'd left nothing on the table. Our life savings had been poured into the unknown, and we didn't even have French visas. I knew there would be damage to uncover in the chateau. The prolonged damp was clearly in evidence on the ground floor. The boilers had been flooded out and were useless. The kitchen was a health hazard, with mouldy cupboards, peeling walls, collapsed shelves, and beams bedecked with dusty dried flowers. Our chateau dream had gone from conception to reality in about 4 years, and now here we were, with no idea what was in store.
We moved in on the day we got the keys. No hotels for us. Jane, though, was still working in and commuting to the UK. We had to make a room clean enough to set up a forward operating base. From there, we would be making regular sorties into spider and rodent territories. For those first couple of days, we had help from my sister and niece.
Before buying Chateau de Pican, we'd spent maybe an hour there. Holding a jar of keys for who knew which door, we had a feeling of excitement and a look of what do we do now?
In those early days, we ran around the chateau filming as we went, gawping at the unbelievable number of cherubs scattered about the place, and even playing games like Old Man's Undercrackers Roulette. There were candles that were suffering with performance anxiety.
A library filled with books, all in German of course, and every room was stuffed with treasure of every kind. So much was left behind that even now we find things that had previously been overlooked. It was all magical, ridiculous, overwhelming and slightly alarming in equal measure.
One of the very first things we did was to flood the laundry room, but that was my fault, so I'll gloss over that. The electrics in the chateau, dodgy as some of them might be, worked. The plumbing was another issue. The estate agent had told us there was a water leak on the incoming water main. We tried to douse for the leak, but no matter how hard we tried, we came up dry. The easier option was to hire a man with a digger to dig a new trench, and I laid a new water pipe. Problem solved. Most of the Chateau's toilets had been changed for electrically run macerating toilets. If you don't know what one is, think garbage disposal units for your bum. The ones in the Chateau were 30 years old. Imagine, if you will, what could happen to a rubber seal over a 30-year period? Now imagine that seal is an important part of a toilet's waste removal system, and not to mention the 8 months of unflushed sewage. I'll stop there. We started by replacing the soil pipes, which meant drilling and chiselling through stone walls and getting covered in dust as we searched for the existing ones, which we knew were too narrow and needed replacing.
If you think that sounds tedious and irksome, it was. Hours of arduous drilling, piles of rubble, elusive pipes, pipes that went around corners, pipes that were hard to reach, and pipes that had to be cut and connected to convoluted sculptural joints, all in the name of a good flush without a pong. The decorating would have to wait. We thought that decorating our first guest suite would be easy. The walls and ceilings were sound and already painted in acceptable colours. Once the tomato red carpet had gone, all would be well. Sadly not. One carpet had been glued down with a layer of adhesive that had been so liberally applied that every strand of carpet and backing was caught in its net. That carpet had been installed to last, so even after hours of ripping and tugging and rolling, there were days and days of scraping and smearing solvent gel around to come. The other carpet was worse. It not only had the insanely copious adhesive, designed to last for millennia, but this tenacious layer was laid on top of self-levelling compound. It was as hard as obsidian, completely sealing and covering the floorboards. Unless we wanted our first year to be spent chiselling and resculpting this single floor, we had to cover it, mostly in carpet. It took months of hard work, but eventually our first suite was ready for guests, with new carpet in one room and varnished floorboards in the other, and these lovely murals in each. Rory, bless him, gave me carte blanche to redesign this previously very smelly bathroom, which I duly did, not realising that I had thereby placed the loo over the stairs and therefore there was no easy way to hide the waste pipes. Fortunately, Rory loves drilling and it's great for adding volume to his hair. But seriously, I thought I was making design choices that would make his life easier, leave most of the panelling the vanity units untouched, keep the floor tiles, and put the shower back where it was.
However, removing the bath revealed multitudinous horrors, including a wooden support beam that was as substantial as a handful of dried leaves. Parts of the floor had to be rebuilt, the beam replaced, the ceiling below fell down, and with extensive carpentry work still required, it felt like we would never get out of there. But get out of there we did, and we hope you'll agree we got out of there in style.
If anyone ever tells you having your own horses means you can ride anytime you want, that has never been less true than when moving to a new property that has no horse facilities. We had one tumble-down stable that filled with water when it rained, and no paddocks, and a barn with a massively leaky roof.
And so began the heavy labour of giving our pasture ornaments the living quarters they deserved. We cleared rubbish and debris from the barn and built stable bays, and at long last the horses had airy and mostly watertight homes. One end of the barn roof was falling apart, and there were hundreds of tiles, maybe even 1,000 that had to be replaced. Slowly but surely we scoured local ads and found reclaimed tiles of the type required.
Rory used his Spider-Man grippy feet, his legendary balance, his indefatigable optimism, and his fearless head for heights to replace many of those needed. Over in the fields, we tonk-tonked many a post. Then, because we had so much free time, we acquired another horse called Dizzy, because they say you can't have too many animals. You know, they're always saying that.
We may have forgotten to mention that we also adopted 2 gorgeous kitten sisters who we named Arwen and Galadriel, and who simply couldn't be separated. We then adopted 2 adolescent spaniel sisters who were even more dependent upon each other. Their lives had been spent without love or comfort. They weren't house-trained, leash-trained, and would eat anything, literally, out one end and back in the other. Tinkerbell and Tiger Lily get more than enough love and attention now and are utterly devoted to Jane.
Designing, stripping turf and planting up a symmetrical cottage garden, an Englishwoman's nod to a French formal garden using the language of English roses and wicker fencing, was an oasis of peace for me. Peace amidst the turmoil of setbacks, lost tools, dust, problems to solve, supplies to procure and budgets to squeeze in the renovation of the chateau itself. When gardening, the worst that can happen is that some of your plants fail to thrive. Everything else is under your control. You get dirt under your fingernails, maybe blisters on your hands, weariness from lugging soil and water around, but the rewards are wonderful, and largely I know what I'm doing. The same cannot be said for most of the pantheon of DIY skills, but if you need someone to spend hours or even days trying to choose the right rug or curtains, I'm a shoo-in for that role.
Towards the end of the first year, our dear friends Alex, Paul, Will and Zach came to lend a hand. Instead of choosing a best man for our wedding, they were to be my best family. The wedding was set for September, just 6 months away, but seeing the mountain we still had to climb before them, they pondered whether it may be a wiser move to postpone. We wavered and considered it, but ultimately we confirmed the date, gave our loins a good old girding, and redoubled our efforts. Oh, and the laundry room flooded again. This time it wasn't my fault.
We'd now lived our new life for a year. We'd worked our socks off. Our family had shrunk and then grown even larger. We'd begun to learn just how many forms need to be filled in to live in France. And we'd made great strides in our renovation project to create a holiday gîte in the east wing of the chateau. But there was absolutely no time to slow down to catch our breath.
We thought we'd worked hard in our first year, but it turned out year 2 was the backbreaker. Year 2 was the one with the swimming pool build. The one with the rotten floor, the one with the new kitchen, the one where we panelled a room from scratch, the one where everything had to be done in time for our wedding, the one that some days we thought would kill us.
Remember when we thought this room just needed new wallpaper and a spruce up?
Yes, what fools we were!
We'd always called this the creaky bedroom due to its flooring squeak, which we hoped we could solve.
We did solve it, just not in the way we'd hoped. Up came the herringbone parquet. It was only pine, so it's not the end of the world. Beneath the boards, we discovered woodworm hell, or paradise, depending whether you're a chateau owner or a woodworm. We were shocked by the extent of the damage. The huge oak beams that looked sound turned quite literally to powder at my touch. The source of the squeaking turned out to be the supports for the ceiling beneath. To combat the squeak, I decided to lay another set of joists which would sit higher than the existing ones to support the floor. I would be working on the floor for weeks, all concurrently with the swimming pool build. Just to add to my list of little extras, this room was going to have its own ensuite shower room, which I also had to create, plumb in, and make ready by our wedding in September. I think the word would be rustic, but it was functional.
A holiday in a sunny climate like southwest France is synonymous with days spent splashing about and lounging next to a pool. We had the perfect spot, but absolutely no experience of building or even owning a swimming pool. With only 3 months to go until our wedding, the chateau in disarray, and not yet having enough serviceable bedrooms to house family and friends, we began the construction.
My eternal optimism imagined a smooth and steady road. It'll be fine. We'll be finished by mid-July. The writing was on the wall from the day the pool kit arrived and the lorry drove into the ditch.
The team that excavated the hole were exemplary. A well-oiled machine was what they were and what they were driving. In one day they came, they saw, they conquered. It was now over to us.
Firstly, we left the hose on by accident, which flooded the pool, a costly and time-consuming error. We wisely brought in my builder friend Darren from the UK to guide us through laying the concrete pad. The pool kit was like a Lego set with no instructions, or rather the instructions were very vague. We thought it was going well until the concrete pour started bursting the corners of the pool. Much of the work was completed through summer heat and heat waves. It was grueling, but we turned up every day and put in the hours.
Ultimately, the walls were fixed in place, the liner was lined and the terrace was terraced. There were a few minor parts left to finish off, but by late August we had a swimming pool. Working indoors and out, we'd been putting in 15-hour days and we were slowly coming apart at the seams. Did we mention the kitchen installation? Perhaps we had taken on a little more than was wise in such a short space of time. The back kitchen, which will form part of the holiday gîte, was another big project we'd started, and we needed it to be ready for the wedding. I'd bought handmade pine kitchen units, which had buckled and warped shortly after arriving at the chateau. This meant clamping and strapping them back together. After smashing out the old concrete kitchen units, Rory had to retile about a quarter of the floor and completely redo the old plumbing before the new units could be installed. Once they were in place, the kitchen began to take shape, and with the worktops and tiled backsplash, the rooms started to look lovely. We knew now that even if it wasn't fully completed before the wedding, it would be functional enough to be the main prep kitchen.
Our wedding, now perilously close, became the focus of our attention. Jane had worked tirelessly ordering tables and chairs, plates and cutlery, lights and decorations. She had planned out and prepped all the meals, which included an arrival barbecue on the Friday, the breakfast, the wedding breakfast and the evening meal for the Saturday, and she even planned for hungry mouths on the Sunday where required. It was no mean feat. In fact, it was nothing short of incredible.
The big weekend arrived, and it was clear to our friends that we were exhausted and overwhelmed by what was still left to do and our relative lack of sleep. We have some truly marvellous friends. Everyone stepped up and told us to step down. They all but took over, leaving us to relax a little and deal with the important things.
For example, I was still writing my speech on the morning of the wedding.
The day was a triumph. The ceremony, the food, the speeches, the company, and the entertainment. We couldn't have hoped for a better day.
Après le mariage, we slipped away for a very short honeymoon in Arcachon. It's a gorgeous coastal town, just a quick hop from Bordeaux. The weather didn't behave the whole time, but we still had a brilliant few days. If you ever get the chance to go, we'd highly recommend it. The food, the sights, the history, the boat trips. If you're ever nearby and the sun is shining, just go. Back home at Chateau de Pican, the wind was firmly out of our sails. We'd put so much effort into the chateau and the wedding that our tanks were empty. We slowly got back on the horse, which is ironic because we hadn't found time to do any horse riding at all. But the creaky bedroom with its nice new hardwood floor was calling. We came up with the insanely clever idea to completely panel the room in wood. We'd never tried anything like this, but we knew that if we could pull it off, it would look stunning. I have to admit that I was really rather enjoying the process of creating the wood panelling. That was until I discovered the next of this room's big problems. The lintel above the window was completely and utterly rotten. It was, quite figuratively, only staying in place because it lacked the will to collapse. With every handful of wood fibre, our panic levels rose a notch. This sadly meant I had to smash through a large section of the chateau's original crown moulding. We replaced the lintel with an oak sleeper cut to size and carried on. The creaky room is technically still not finished, which seems incredible as we've been working on it so hard for so long. There are now just a few finishing touches to complete in the bedroom itself, and a little more work in the ensuite shower room. Even though our pace of work slowed in the autumn, we hardly enjoyed long relaxing days. A neglected chateau has needs, big and small. Year 2 meant reapplying for our visas. Both of our driving licenses were expiring, which meant we needed French ones, and a gazillion other forms needing signatures kept Jane especially awake at night for fear of ticking the wrong box or missing a form completely. The famous French paperwork really can be a little daunting to a newcomer.
One thing we discovered during our first winter at the chateau was that it was possible for me to normalise wearing a ski onesie indoors and a woolly hat in bed. Whilst the chateau is furnished with radiators, there is no working boiler to run them, and the cost of replacement is currently beyond our means. There are several working hearths though, 1 large open fireplace and 3 wood-burning stoves.
We replaced the one in the main kitchen, which seemed to send all its heat up the chimney, with one we could sit a stove fan on top of. The gîte kitchen was without a heat source, and so we added a touch of modernity to the chateau. We installed a pellet stove. It's super efficient and blows the heat around the room, warming it in no time. If we leave doors open, we can help warm the living room next to it and the old laundry room as well.
Which brings us on to our latest ongoing project. The final bedroom we want to create for the holiday gîte is a room with step-free access. The old laundry room was the perfect choice. It had been used by Rory's parents during our wedding weekend and is a great size for a mini suite.
Its problems, however, are multitudinous. An incoming water main, well water storage tank and hot water cylinder were all in the way. The existing plumbing was all in the wrong places. There was a wall where we needed a doorway, an open gap where we needed a wall. The floor is topped with a tile that's nearly impossible to remove, and the walls have been wearing a non-breathable tile for about 60 years, which has left the lime mortar struggling to breathe.
We'd bitten off another chunk of chewy trouble here, but bit by bit, tile by tile, the room is transforming and showing us its potential.
Throughout our journey, we have been aided and abetted by Chateau DIY, who filmed us at our best and worst, all in the name of light entertainment. They were there the day we arrived and periodically ever since. They've captured 2 Christmases and more DIY projects than we care to count, following us through triumphs, mishaps and the sorts of chaos that seems to come hand in hand with Chateau ownership. If you're new to our channel, please follow along because there are lashings of nincompoopery waiting for you, past, present and future. We've barely scratched the surface of the Chateau projects we've got lined up. There will be so much more madness, renovation successes and, we're sure, calamities to come.
We can't promise you'll love everything we do, but we can promise we'll put our hearts and souls into doing it.
This video can't begin to cover all the work we've completed over the last 2 years.
I have been investigating some of the Chateau's treasures, trying to find out where they came from, what they might be worth, and sharing them in our videos through Find of the Day. We have about 8 cubic meters of treasure boxes in the barn that we still haven't opened.
This is but a snapshot of our time here.
We are so grateful to all of you who have followed our fortunes thus far, and we're truly excited to welcome new friends. We love reading your comments and much appreciate every like, subscribe and hype. It all helps us to reach a larger audience. Joining us on this journey will genuinely make a real difference to us.
You can catch up on the cavalcade of chaotic capers already chronicled and follow along as our future adventures unfold in this once abandoned chateau. Until next time, auf Wiedersehen, à bientôt, and toodle pip.